Welcome to the Storm Trysail Foundation's instructional video series that will help you prepare for the hands-on Safety at Sea seminar. This video focuses on emergency steering. I'm Gary Jobson. Losing your steering offshore is one of the most critical challenges a boat and its crew can face. But with the right knowledge and modest equipment, the resourceful crew can still steer a ship to safe harbor. Michael Keyworth, a professional captain, boatyard manager, and Bermuda race inspector, has accumulated over 200,000 miles offshore. He has assembled an action plan and tested various drogue deployments in an effort to find what works best should you be unfortunate enough to lose your rudder offshore. As a test platform, Keyworth had the rudder removed from his Swan 44 chasseur. This enabled him to test various drogue setups to enable a vessel to make way on all points of sail, as well as under power and while being towed. Initial testing in both heavy wind and light air using various size gale rider drogues, custom made for this project by Hathaway, Reeser, and Raymond, found that the gale rider drogue with a 30-inch diameter gave the best control with the least amount of impact on the boat's speed.
The cool thing about using a drogue is that's really all the extra gear that we took, and it wasn't extra gear. We have a 36-inch gale rider, which, by the way, slows this boat down about a half knot more than the 30-inch drogue. So every other piece of equipment, the chain came from a second anchor, which we're required to carry when doing an offshore race. The sheet, that we use 2 spinnaker sheets as the bridle. So boats have plenty of line to be able to rig it up. The winches are already there. What we learned is, first of all, that the drogue is effective. The drogue may need some adaptation. It may need some weight when it's blowing hard and the boat's going faster. We had some cavitation issues at a wind range of around 15 to 25 and a 10-foot long 3/8-inch chain attached as a leader to the drogue seemed to work pretty well. We did find that it's really important that the drogue be trimmed by its bridle from starboard side amidships and port side amidships. My conclusion is that boats need to rotate on their keel in that there's no other lateral stability. So it's really important to get the drogue to midships over the center part of the keel or thereabouts. We also discovered that minor adjustments make a big difference. That as little as 3 inches of change in drogue from one side to the other is a big, big difference. I ended up whipping in colored whippings at 10-foot intervals on both of the bridles, which gave me a reference as to where the drogue was behind the boat, whether it was to starboard or port. And in doing maneuvers, it helped us, tacking and jibing, it helped us to gain a frame of reference after the maneuver was complete.
The drogue is deployed carefully from the stern of the vessel. Be sure there is no extra line from the bridle hanging over the side that could tangle with the prop. There's no need to make a bad situation even worse. Remember, the bridle should be led to snatch blocks amidships over the keel for the optimum ease of steering. You'll find steering quite natural. A little trim in on the starboard sheet and the boat will veer off in that direction. Conversely, a little trim on the port sheet and the hull will veer to port.
You see the control that Chris has, even after just having used it. We're sailing right now, or motoring by a bell buoy within about 50 feet of it. I think we'll do a port turn here, 360. We're now doing boat speeds 4.5 knots. Pretty radical turn. Over the bow line. You can see our radius here. Those are our wake, showing us about 4.5, 5 boat lengths.
Steering with a drogue instead of a rudder requires getting the boat to balance with the sails. Remember, in general, the mainsail, which is behind the center of lateral resistance, makes the boat head up toward the wind. And the jib, which is in front of the center of lateral resistance, forces the boat to fall off. Through on-the-water testing, Keyworth found that his boat will not sail upwind without the mainsail up and will not sail downwind until the mainsail is lowered. On your boat, you'll have to experiment as you go. In some conditions, you might find a full main and a number 2 or number 3 Genoa will balance the boat best. While in other conditions, putting a reef in the main will keep the boat from rounding up. Sea states and wind speeds will change how a boat balances. In any case, while you're steering with the drogue trimmer and sail trimmer have to work together. The boat will tack easier by helping it to turn with the sail trim. To start the turn into the wind, ease the jib sheet 6 to 12 inches, and then trim the main traveler so the boom comes to windward of the center line. To help get the bow of the boat through the eye of the wind, backwind the jib. That will help the bow turn down onto the new tack. Once you've completed your tack, then release the jib sheet so the jib can be trimmed onto the new side. Don't trim it in all the way. Leave it out so the boat can accelerate with fuller sails. Notice the drogue is to starboard in this picture and the boat is going straight. As soon as the traveler is pulled up some, making the mainsail trim tighter, the boat heads up.
Okay, I think if you trim the main on a little more, you come up.
Keyworth found in his tests that when the wind is aft of 90 degrees apparent, it's necessary to take the mainsail down and sail under jib alone. It will be necessary to have an attentive jib trimmer in addition to a helmsperson on the drogue controls. The size of the jib will have to be factored in based on the wind and sea conditions. He also found that the deeper the angle, the harder it was to have fine control of direction. Jibing is pretty much straightforward by easing the jib and rotating the drogue.
It's sort of hard to believe that the boat doesn't have any rudder at all.
It's amazing how quick it actually turns.
Yeah.
Recovering boats that have lost their rudders requires towing for some or all of the recovery. Keyworth found that when his boat was towed without a rudder, then it swung from port to starboard at times violently. At speeds as low as 4 knots, the boat snapped back and forth so quickly that it was difficult to stand on the foredeck. Once the 30-inch drogue was deployed, towing at 7 knots was comfortable and straight, requiring very little input from the helmsman. This is an important finding, as it suggests that a drogue should be carried at all times so that assistance can be rendered safely even inshore. Keyworth learned that sailing a boat while steering with the drogue is tiring since the crew is constantly trimming the sails and the helmsman is constantly adjusting the drogue. He suggests that if you're a long way from a safe harbor, crew management calls for sailing when the boat is easy to keep on course and then resting by using the motor or using the drogue as a sea anchor to stop. His tests show that the boat handles extremely well under power with little effort. Having enough fuel should not be a critical issue, since most offshore races require boats to carry an appropriate amount. In the Bermuda race, for instance, boats need to finish with enough fuel to motor 100 miles.
The maximum wind we sailed in was about 25 knots. The seas were between 4 and 6 feet, and at that we had to deploy the drogue farther aft. We had a little bit less control of the actual course of the boat, but we sailed an approximate course of 15 to 20 degrees within the rum line to where we wanted to be.
The bottom line is, based on the wind and sea conditions, you'll need to make adjustments to best suit your boat, but the concepts remain the same. One is advised against going to sea without provisions for a sea anchor and gear necessary to fashion an able steering drogue.